between what you believe and the reality. If you live in fear, then you will generate chemistry that will manifest fear for you. If you live in joy and love, well, then you change your life and you live in joy and love. But the joy, love, fear, whatever it is still based on your perception and your belief. So the whole idea of the brain is to interpret the world and then send the chemistry inside the body to have your cells support you in the world in which you live. So the cells don't know what. My liver cell right now is buried in here trying to digest something I just ate, and it says, what's going on in the world? The liver cell says, I have no idea what's going on in the world out there. But I'll get some information because the nervous system will tell me what's going on in the world. So my nervous system's function is to read the environment, interpret it, and then tell my cells, what must they do? If I misread the environment, I misinterpret the environment, then I send the wrong information to my cells. And we've been programmed to totally misperceive the environment. We've been so programmed, we don't even know who we are. And the whole idea is, so where'd you get this programming from? Well, the programming comes from the mind. And I say, well, there's two parts to the mind. And they work together, but they're not the same. And this is very critical because we've generally put the two together and said one mind. I go, no, no, you have two minds. A conscious mind, which is associated with what is called the prefrontal cortex, a lobe of neural tissue right behind your forehead. That's the latest evolution of the brain. Before that evolution, the rest of the brain would constitute the subconscious. So we have a conscious part up in the front, and the big part of the brain is the subconscious. I say, guess what? They have two totally different functions and way of operating. And this is the critical piece you need to know about your life. And it goes like this. The conscious mind is the seat of your uniqueness. The conscious mind is you. The conscious mind is connected to your source. The conscious mind is the seat of your spirit and your body. Your personal identity is in that conscious mind. Conscious mind is the fabulous mind. You know why? It's creative. It's the creative mind. I ask you, what do you want out of your life? And you can give me a creative answer. I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. I want to be successful. I go, great. That's great creation. Where's that thought coming from? Conscious mind. Connected to who you are and what you really want. And I go, well, so what is the function of the conscious mind? Well, it has your wishes, desires, and your aspirations. What do you want out of life? Your conscious mind's going to feed you and tell you what you want. Because that's you. This is what I want. And it's also the seat of, and don't use it in a negative way, positive thinking. Because positive thinking is creative thinking. I go, well, this is cool. This is the function of the conscious mind. So what is the subconscious mind? A totally different animal. The subconscious mind is the equivalent of a record playback mechanism. It records your life experiences, and once recorded, you can push the button and play them back over and over and over again. So what is the subconscious mind? It's the habitual mind. It's where habits are. You can be pushing the button all your life and play the same thing over and over and over again. A lot of people say the subconscious mind is the font of hell, you know. That's where all the evil comes from. It's like, no. It's a simple machine that records. What you record could be good, and what you record can be bad. Don't blame it on the subconscious mind, because without that, you wouldn't have the ability to remember things like how to walk. If you didn't have a subconscious mind, you wanted to go home, I would have said you should have started about 2 days ago if you wanted to get home, because you wouldn't know how to stand up even. So the subconscious mind is a powerful ally because it gives us an opportunity, once we learn, not to have to learn it every day over and over again. So what is it? Experiences, yes, record life experiences in there, so when you push that button, it will play back what you learned. And more importantly, and this is very critical, it doesn't have just your life experiences, it has other people's life experiences. Why? It acquires programs through indirect learning, meaning I don't have to understand something directly. I go to school, the teacher tells me about it, and now I learned about it. Even though I've never experienced it directly, I learned it in school. So I have indirect learning. So the subconscious mind doesn't have just your life experiences, it has what people have taught you. So all of a sudden we say, yeah, the subconscious mind's got all these programs in it. And the significance about this is we have these two wonderful minds that cooperate together. How do they cooperate? And listen to this, because this is the key to your life. The conscious mind is not time-bound. What does that mean? Hey, what are you doing next week? You got a vision of what you're doing next week? Oh, then your mind is thinking into next week. I said, wait, what'd you do last week? Oh, if you can tell me what you did last week, then your mind went back last week. I said, wait. I want you to think of this fact in your head. And what will your conscious mind do? Stop looking at the world and go up in your head and start thinking. That is the most important point for this. The conscious mind not being time-bound means that it travels every time you have a thought. It's not paying attention. And how many thoughts do we have a day? How many thousands and thousands of thoughts do you have a day? Why is that relevant? If your conscious mind's not paying attention, then who's running the show? And the answer is the default, the subconscious program. I go, well, what's interesting about that? Well, the subconscious program lives only in the present moment. The subconscious doesn't know what happened last year as opposed to what's going to happen next week. If I could talk to your subconscious mind and say, when did you learn how to walk? And your subconscious mind go, today? Because it doesn't know any other thing than today. So the subconscious mind is always living in the present moment. Well, yeah, but here's the problem. This is the problem. The subconscious mind represents programming. Programming from your life experiences, yes, but more importantly, programming from other people. Your subconscious mind was programmed by other people in the early part of your life. And it works like this. You want to train an elephant in India. What do you do with that? I mean, it's a monster. It could be 12 feet tall. How do you tame, so-called, an elephant? Well, for the first few months of its life, you tie a big rope around its leg, you tie that rope to a big stake, and every day for the first few months of its life, what does it do? It wakes up every day and tries to get away, yank its leg, kick the thing, roll on its back, do everything to do what? Get away from the damn rope. After 3 months, gives up. It says, that rope's on, I can't move. I'm done. And I said, yeah, but that's a little baby elephant, a couple feet tall. What happens to the elephant's 12 feet tall? How do you keep it tied up? If you tie a rope to an elephant to your house, he'll pull your house down. How do you tie up an elephant? The joke? You just put the rope on its leg. You don't even tie it to a stake. Once the rope is on its leg, the habit kicks in and says, oh, rope on leg, cannot move. There's a monster standing there with a rope that's not even tied to anything, and it's totally disempowered. The relevance? We are all like that elephant. We've been programmed in the early part of our lives to have ropes around our legs to tie us down, and we believe we are limited because we have these ropes. I said, where'd the ropes come from? I said, well, look at the development of the brain. Now, here's an important part. When you put wires on a person's head and you read what is called EEG, you're reading brain function and brain activity, okay? And I go, really cool. And as an adult, you have a whole range of different vibrational levels. From the lowest level, delta, which is sleeping. The next higher level of vibration is called theta, which is when you're waking up in the morning and you're half awake and half asleep. Twilight reverie, it's called. And then you start to ramp up the vibration a little higher as you're waking up, and you get into the next level called alpha, which is calm consciousness. And by the time you put the key in the ignition and you're driving off to work, you ramp up to the next higher level called beta, which is focused consciousness. Adults have the whole range of activity, but guess what? Kids don't. Kids start off at the lowest level, and then over time ramp up to a higher level, and then to a higher level. The first year or so of a child's life, it's in delta, the lowest vibration. Partially because it spends most of its time sleeping, but also because a child at this age has a nervous system that can take information in, but doesn't have a nervous system that can coordinate a response out. So infants can hear and understand everything you're talking about, but guess what? They have no motor coordination to express themselves, to respond to you, and that's why they're so frustrated. That's why they cry a lot. They were thinking, if I could just tell you what I'm thinking. But they can't. But the next important part is from first year up, and especially through about age 7, A child's brain is predominantly in theta. Theta is associated with imagination. Yeah, sure. That's why kids between 2 and 7 can mix the imaginary world and the real world together because they're operating at that vibrational level of imagination. But it's something more important. But I'll come back to that in a second. By the time a child reaches 7 and starts getting older, it ramps up to the next level, alpha, consciousness. It is now expressing calm consciousness. And then around 12 years of age, it ramps up to the next higher level, beta, which is schoolroom focus consciousness. This is why education changes before 12 and after 12. A child before 12 cannot do that focus consciousness that a child after 12 can do. I said, yeah, but okay, now what's interesting about this? If you haven't seen it, I really want you to look at it real carefully. Why? Consciousness is alpha. Oh, yeah? Then when did consciousness begin? After 6. Then what happened before 6? It's called the programmable state for a very simple reason. Very simple reason. Theta is hypnosis. For the first 6 years of your life, everything you observe is directly downloaded into the subconscious as programs. It doesn't go through consciousness. It's not filtered by belief. It's strictly recorded exactly as seen. This is not an accident. Nature didn't do this to punish you. Nature did this to help you. Why? Well, it can only give you so much information through genetics. The rest of it you have to learn. Yeah, but how can you learn if your conscious mind's thinking, you're a kid, and you're a parent trying to tell the kid, here's 1,000 rules you need to learn today about being a part of society. The kid, after first rule, says, why? Why? And all of a sudden you realize you're never going to get to rule 2. So nature eliminates the problem. Nature says, good. You don't have to have the child worry about it. Everything you say is going to be downloaded, and it becomes a program. So a child observes its mother, its father, its family, its community, its culture, and observes them. The observations go straight down into the subconscious and become behavioral programs. And all of a sudden you start saying, oh my God, this is where we get enculturated. How do I live in a culture? How do I know how to speak to a policeman separate than a kid? Because I saw my father talk to a policeman totally different than when he talked to a kid. And I started to see how my father's behaviors were. And the consequence was I downloaded my father's behavior. And all of a sudden I have these in my subconscious mind. And here's the critical part that I really want parents to understand. There's a tendency for parents to try to goad their children like a coach. They say, you can get out there and work harder. Come on, go out there. You can strive. You can work harder. How do we say that to a kid? Well, we say, no, that's not good enough. I say, who do you think you are? You don't deserve that. You're not that smart. And I'm not meaning to do that to punish my child. I'm thinking if I say those things, maybe my child will make a better effort. So we're out there like coaches as parents telling our kids things. And they say, I say, well, what does that mean? I said, but the child doesn't have consciousness. It's just recording what you just said. And all of a sudden you realize, this is where we get our self-identity. Who am I? It's not controlled by who I believe I am. I'm controlled by what other people tell me who I am. You're a good kid. You're a bad kid. You're not that smart. And all of a sudden you start to realize the number of negative things that parents say without realizing that the child's just recording everything they say. I say, why is that important? Because once that program's in the subconscious, it's always there. And all of a sudden you start to say, oh my goodness, what did I program my child with? Self-love? Self-esteem? Absolutely not. The largest portion of all of us in this world lack self-love. Why? Because we were criticized. And when you're criticized as a child and that's recorded, then you become critical of yourself. And if you're critical of yourself, how can you love yourself? All of a sudden we lost who we are. We lost our love. We become programmed by these beliefs. You know, well, that's cool. That's in the subconscious mind. I go, well, here's the problem. This is the problem. The secret mind, how your unconscious shapes your reality. Why? As it says, according to cognitive neuroscientists, we are conscious of only about 5% of our cognitive activity, meaning only 5% of the time are you controlling your life with your conscious mind. I say, yeah, but why is that relevant? The conscious mind has your wishes and desires in it. 5% of the day, you're moving toward what you want. What happens the other 95% of the day? Your mind's thinking. It's not paying attention. When it's not paying attention, you default